sector. So think state agency boards and commissions. And they maintain what we call the CBC portal, or the Criminal Background Check System. And so this is the website that interfaces with the state police's system, which is called AFIS, which is the Arkansas Fingerprint Identification System. So if that's not enough acronyms, tell me, and I'll go see if I can find a few more, but hopefully that'll kind of get you started. But sometimes the picture's worth 1,000 words. So let me just, give me 1 second, I'll pull this up here. Justin, I noticed they changed colors.
On which site?
On the CBC system, at least the header, it now says Department of Public Safety across the top. You remember how it was blue? It's red now. I don't know if you've seen that yet. Anyway.
Check it out.
Okay. Let me share my screen here, and feel free to ask whatever questions you like. We will try to address those if we can, and if we can't, we will come back to those. So I'm going to say share screen. And hopefully, guys, can you guys see my browser window, Ashlyn? Can you guys see that?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay, well, stupid thing, do what I tell you to. How about now?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
All right, then. Now we're better. So I wanted to point out that this process, so we've tried to document and we continue to improve this. But the best place to go to kind of start to figure out how to do background checks under this new process is to go to our website, which is humanservices.arkansas.gov. Once you get to this website, you'll see a button. We try to make it very easy for you. So if you just click on background checks, it'll sort of take you, I'm gonna make this a little bigger. It'll take you to this page, which I don't know if you guys can see that, but it sort of kind of walks you through. Now, what you're gonna see is today, this is all around DCFS and childcare, mostly childcare, knowing you guys are PRLU providers, but you'll start to see this page grow out in sections. So we've got 3 groups that do background checks. So it's our childcare facilities, adoptive and foster parents, and those type of facilities, and then our other providers. So think Medicaid providers and those. Those are the 3 largest groups. So anyway, I won't walk you through this whole page, but basically, you know, you start the process by going and do it using what we call our it's called FormStack, but it's more like a form generator. And I'll just kind of click on that. And that's, you guys probably have seen this. And this is basically just going to, it's allowing you to type in, and we're making some additions to this to make it clearer. Those of you that have used the registry track form, we're going to try to make it look more like that. But this page just allows you to enter some information. Once you get, you'll kind of work through that. Anything that has an asterisk on it, that's a required field. So once you get all the way down through this and then finish, you'll type submit form. If there's something wrong, it'll kind of highlight at the top in red and say, hey, I'm missing this. So if you're clicking submit and it's not working, that's usually what it is. By the way, we hear some folks talk about not getting the email. So what happens when you click submit on this form is it will send you an email with a PDF of the information that you have filled in, as well as the and that form has some additional information. So it has a place for you to notarize that, because it has to be notarized. And then there's some information about your challenge rights at the bottom. So if you were to get a negative result. So once you get that form, then you or your facility or your whoever has what's called the INA subscriber account, and we'll go kind of take a look at that. But you'll come to what we call the CBC system, which that's this guy. And from here, you can say, I want to create an account. So that's this button here. So if you don't have an account already, you can click on subscribe online. That'll take you over to this place, and you can say, well, if you're a current subscriber, you can log in. If not, by the way, this is an arkansas.gov account. It's not specific to background checks. It's just it's the sort of authentication system that INA used, because they were already using it for other services, like doing your driver's license or your hunting or fishing license online. There's a plethora of services available out there on arkansas.gov. But So that's how you, once you've got that subscriber account, then you can go back to this EBC system and log in with your account. Once you log in, pretty simple. If you have access to multiple reasons, there's a drop down. If not, it'll just be one. Select the reason that you want to run a background check. You'll enter some information, and then you will attach the form. So you'll need to have scanned this in prior. After you go and get it notarized, you'll then attach that form. You'll upload it just like you would a picture to another application. Like if you were uploading a picture to Facebook or something, you'll just, figure out where you've scanned that into and then upload it to this page and then hit submit. Once you're done with that, if you sort of go back to the background check page, you're kind of as the applicant or the subscriber account that's doing this. And by the way, we're working with INA on the next release where you don't have to have a subscriber account. This was just a way to allow us to get it done quickly, but it's not really fair because the subscriber account's like $150 a year. Justin, is that the right cost now?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. And the thought behind that and the reason is that if I want to run, if I'm a large facility and I need to run 50 of these a month, it's easier for me to have one account and then you can bill me every month as opposed to every time I log in having to enter my credit card. But we understand that some of these of the providers and some of you may be smaller and you only need to do a handful. Well, instead of paying $150 fee, you'd rather just pay your portion of the check, and that sort of depends based on ORI. But we do plan on giving you an option to where you can. I'm going to admit somebody's waiting in the waiting room there, Ashland, so I just admitted them. So long story short, once you update that, when you get the person that submitted that, so if I've got Kevin's childcare and Justin is the person running checks for me, so Justin is the one that has the subscriber account, Justin will give, if it's Ashland that's getting her check, if she's the applicant, Justin would give her what's called a transaction number or a search ID. By the way, the only difference between a transaction and a search ID is the full transaction number has 3 characters at the beginning. The search ID is just a 9-digit number. So all in total, we call that the transaction number. So 3 characters. In your case, it might be FOS and then a 9-character number. Or in the case of a child care facility, it might be CHI and then a 9-character number. But that's what that is. You'll take that number, and then when you're ready to go to get your fingerprint scan, then you will, and I'm gonna let you guys do this. It looks like we got some more folks in the waiting room. Once you do that, you'll go to this part of the page and click on this link, and this is where you will schedule your fingerprints. And fairly simple, you just click on make appointment, select your appointment type. We could have other services. Right now we just have fingerprinting. And then you can just type, so let's say that I'm in Washington County, and I can then see that I've got 2 locations that we have fingerprint scanners deployed at about 53 locations, I think, Justin, is that right?
Yes, 53.
Across the state to allow you as a convenience, and our directors of child care and family services work together to try to strategically put those. We do know that some of you guys you may have an education co-op or a school district or another facility. We're working with state police and the Department of Ed, and so there's to allow you to do that. That has gotten tied up in, I'll just say, legalese to make sure, but we're working that path. From DHS's perspective, we don't mind you using those, but we don't own those and we can't facilitate that. We would also say that we can't control those. So if you do go outside our office and you have a problem with the check, well, that's kind of on you because that's not anything we can manage, obviously. But let's say I want to stay inside the DHS office. I'll go and pick, let's say I wanted to use Washington County. And then I can say, well, I can't go today or tomorrow, but I can go on Thursday. And we've got the appointment set up in 20-minute time slot. So let's say I want to go at 9:20 on Thursday. Put your first, last name in, email, phone, and then your search ID. Again, you'll see search ID and transaction ID used together. You can either enter the full 3 characters and 9-digit number, or in this case, it's just the 9-digit number. Either one will kind of work. We're shifting that language to be that full a number. So you'll start to see transaction ID anywhere you see. But don't freak out if you don't. Just either one is okay.
Hey, Jason, this is Ebony. Before you kind of move a little bit further, can you go back? I think someone wanted to know how you did that previous process.
The form stack form, is that what you're talking about? So let's go back. So if you just follow steps at a time. So the first thing, someone needs to have a subscriber account, and then you need to go fill out the background check form. And you do that by clicking this link. Is this what you're talking about, Ebony? If not, I'll kind of walk through that.
Can I say something? This is Cindy.
Sure.
Okay, at the top when it says reason for check, background check, that always has to be for child welfare placement in residential agencies. That always has to be, because that's the license that they hold. I know there's foster in there and I know there's adoptive in there, but we have to have that form filled out under placement in residential. That's one of the biggest mistakes I see.
It's a good point. And you'll start to see, I'll bring an example up. We're also working to automate our child registry process, but we're going to try to put some language like this at the top of the background check form that sort of gives you a little more information, like you're a teacher or you are a potential existing employee of a child care facility or residential facility for children and youth. So our DCFS director came up with this for us to try to help drive the process a little bit. So you'll see some of this kind of language at the top of the background check form here soon enough. It keeps getting in the way. So, but that's a good point, Cindy. And then, you know, pretty straightforward, just filling out a form, date of birth, you know, all that kind of stuff. Once you click submit, again, this will email a PDF to you of the with the form. And you'll just want to take that, print it off, take it to be notarized, and you'll sign it in front of the notary will stamp it, and then you'll want to scan that back in. So get to a scanner, scan it in, and then you'll have that file somewhere, and then that's where you go back to the CBC system, which is here. You'll log in, upload it as you do the request, or the person that has the subscriber account does the request. And then you're back over to making your scheduling appointment for fingerprints.
One other thing, I'm sorry, Kevin.
No.
We came across where director was trying to set up appointments and they were putting their email in each one of these. It won't take the same email. It has to be a different email if you're setting up numerous appointments, is what we found out.
Yeah, and we're working on it. That's a great point, Cindy. So it does need to be a unique email here. And the thought process is that, let's say, again, I go back to, so if this is Kevin's childcare and Justin is the person kind of doing all this for me, and my employee or the applicant is Ashlyn, well, we would use Ashlyn's email here, not our own, so that Ashlyn would get the text and the email and the notification, hey, you've made an appointment. And the reason for this scheduling system is really twofold. One, we're trying not to emulate the DMV. I'm sure most of you love that experience and can't wait to go register your car tag. But we wanted to try to avoid that. So we didn't, you know, most people would try to go at lunch or some other time. There'd be 100 people trying to get their fingerprint. So the goal was to make it very organized and orderly, so that you show up at your appointment time, and yeah, maybe you got to wait for a minute, but you don't have to wait for an hour or two to get your fingerprints done. The second reason is sometimes these live scan machine things don't work. There's a lot of technical stuff. Without boring you there, sometimes they just go down. Well, if that machine's not available, we really are trying to keep from inconveniencing you, making you drive 30 minutes over to another county to get your fingerprints. If there's not one closer to you. So this allows us, if we have a problem with the machine, or if the office closes due to potentially, you know, something to do with the pandemic or something else, we can notify you, and then you can know, oh, that appointment's no longer good, I need to go make another appointment. So it's a way to, you know, much like your dentist's office does, if we can't get your cleaning done, then we can let you know. So that's the purpose of this. And then once you capture, go ahead. I heard a question.
Hey, Kevin, this is April at Water Springs. Back to that, filling out that form before you get to the fingerprints for the replacement that Miss Cindy was talking about. Where it says the email address, like if someone's standing, yes, like if someone's standing right here beside me, I will put in my email address so it'll come right back to the office right then and there. Because I think somebody else had that same question or chatting on that question. But if you put their email address, it's going to them and they're going to have to bring it in to be notarized. So it needs to be maybe both people can get it at the, the one who's actually getting the information, the business and the other person maybe, because that's why it doesn't come back to your email as quickly, is because it's going directly to that person. Even if you put whoever email you put in there, that's where it's going directly to. So
yeah, and we talk about that here. So that's a great point. We say, please verify you've entered. When you click on this field, you'll see a little pop-up that says, please verify you've entered the correct email address so the completed form can be sent to you. So you can choose whatever email you want, that this is where the form goes to. So if the thought process is that the applicant really is the one that needs to get the form, so that, if you, because you can't sign on behalf of the applicant, right? Even if you print it for them, you still have to hand the form to them and they have to take it to a notary to be signed.
well, yes, because we have a notary in the office, so it doesn't, and now that it doesn't take as long, we could do that, print it right here. But I
Okay.
also learned that you cannot write it in, so that was a good thing.
Yeah,
It has
nope.
to be typed in.
And there's a reason for that too, because one of the things we found was that we were having a hard time reading handwriting, as you can imagine. I mean, my handwriting's terrible, for example. And so if it was Smith or Smith's son or Smith's or something else, it was oftentimes. So then that would get all the way through the process and it would cost people money because, some handwriting problem. And state police would say they had a hard time reading. So that was really the purpose behind this process, this form generator, was to allow you to type it in and then it's all nice and clean and typed on the form. And all you've got to do is sign it. So that as you pass that, as that goes down the road for processing, we're not having to try to read Kevin's goofy handwriting.
Excuse me, who is the go-to person in case we get stalled or run into some problems?
I'm going to ask Cindy or Ebony how they want to handle that.
This is Cindy. It probably would be me. I'm the one who would be the one that adjudicates everything on the INA system, so I pretty well know. If you got any questions, I can walk you through.
Can you provide your email or a way to contact you?
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, very good.
All
And I
right.
think, and Ashlyn, keep me honest here, but I think you guys are working on like a shared email box or an 800 number or something that might not, in case Cindy or someone was out, but keep me honest there.
We are, you guys, we're working through that process right now with our team that is here just to make sure that we have coverage. So as soon as we get that solidified, we will definitely let you guys know. Your best person or point of contact would be Cindy. So Cindy, stick your information in the chat. And then Nora, I know you're online as well. Nora is the program manager over the background check unit. So for now, she would also be a good point of contact for you guys. So Nora, if you will put your information in the chat box as well.
We'll
you guys will have two people. Sir?
Can I get Cindy to put that stuff up again just a second?
Yes, sir. It's right in the chat box, but we can put it up again to see if you'll type it in one more time. And then Nora, if you will also put your information in.
I see it now.
That's okay. Yeah. Of course, always you can get a hold of Ebony. Ebony would be the program manager over the placement and residential licensing unit. So if you had any programmatic questions, or if you get stuck on the background check, she would know who to go over to Nora's team and try to get some help. So Ebony, if you don't mind putting your information in as well. So hopefully one of these three people can absolutely help you. I'm also going to put mine in so that you'll have me as well. I might be a little tougher to grab, but I always get back with you guys. So it might just be a little bit of delay, and I'll put that information in as well, Mr. Jackson. Okay, Kevin, I think I'm ready.
Oh, was I on mute? Ashley, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great.
You can.
Okay, good. I was just saying that, so I was bouncing around a little bit. Bottom line, once you finish your scheduling of, making your appointment, you'll pick your location. That'll send you a text if you want it to. You select that or an email, and then you just wait for your time. Once your time happens, you'll go to our office or another location if you've chosen to do that. There are some other folks that are authorized today to do that. There are some private harvesters. Again, we don't control that process. So if you want us to help, then you kind of got to go to one of our offices. So once you get there, just tell them you're there for a fingerprinting appointment. They'll ask you for your search ID or your transaction ID. You need to have some form of ID. We need to make sure that you are not getting a background check for someone else. So we'll check your ID. We'll get your transaction number. They do what they call slaps and then fingerprints. So they'll go through a couple of iterations capturing those. By the way, there are some things if you, it requires your search ID, and your date of birth. So if the person, so like Justin was entering these for Kevin's childcare for Ashlyn. So if Ashlyn shows up and the date of birth that she has is not the date of birth that Justin keyed, the system's going to go, we can't find the record. So be very careful if you're the person with the subscriber account entering the information to make sure it's right. Because if Ashlyn shows up and she says, well, my date of birth is October 6th of 1970, and Justin entered it as November 6th of 1960, system's not going to find it. And you're going to be frustrated because the operator's going to say, we can't find your record.
The biggest mistake we have on date of birth right now is keying it as 2020. So.
Oh, as opposed to instead of 19 whatever.
Right.
So yeah, just be careful with that. And we've got some other things. We've got a new release of the fingerprinting software coming. We've had some trouble with things like, hyphens in last names. And this process is governed by, if you really want to know about it, is governed by a regulatory environment and some regulations called CJIS, which is the criminal justice sort of area. So if you're interested in seeing what all that's about, you can. So that's really it. That's sort of an overview of the process. I will mention some of you may also have to do registry checks. We're working on some additional automation there, but today to start your registry check, and you'll see this down at the bottom of the background check page, but you can click the link and this will take you to a registry page. And by the way, some of these forms are dynamic. So if you click, if you click a button, it may ask you for some additional information. So if you say I'm a teacher and I work for the school, it may ask you for some education information. Or if I'm a potential employee of a child care, it may ask you for some DCCC information. There's a new version of this form coming shortly as well.
Kevin, did you say that the person needs, did you say whether or not the person needs to show up at the fingerprint schedule with an ID?
You definitely need some type of photo ID. So driver's license, state issued ID, military ID, something that confirms your identity. What's that?
Okay, I just want to say on this maltreatment form, which one you have done right here is the one that they should be using. I know they have foster support, potential foster, all that, but they have the placement and residential license. So that is the one they're going to use. That triggers maltreatment central registry to send it to me so we can faster process the requests that they have. Otherwise, it's going to go back to them.
I gotta chime in. Sorry, this is Misha. Now you're in my territory. So just for clarification, a person could pick the second one, which is or the one that Kevin is currently on, because that will go to DCCE as well. So a potential foster parent for a private organization. I know I saw Connected Care on. So like your potential foster parent would select number 4. And if you're Soaring Wings, because I saw Jason on, he would pick number 2, residential facility, and either of those will go to DCCECE.
Okay, thank you, Misha. All right, with that, I'll kind of just stay here and pause. And what other questions do you have? And I haven't, let me pull the chat up over here. Do we have some chat questions?
There is. Oh my goodness. So one person, Miss Bonnie, has indicated that her notary is out of Oklahoma. Is it a requirement that she has an Arkansas notary?
Are they going to be notarizing in Arkansas?
Yes.
Then the notary has to be an Arkansas notary if they are doing it, because their notary is only good for the state that they are in.
Okay. And what happened to forms prior to the new process? Example, February.
Ashlyn, you might want to take that one.
I can do that. We are still processing those forms. If it's been since February, that seems a little long for me. So if you will reach out to Nora, would be the best person to contact. And she should be able to give you an update status to let you know what is happening with that particular request. But anything prior, any old forms that have been submitted, unless there was something wrong with them, like missing information, for instance, then we should be processing those forms.
Okay, is the adult maltreatment form still required?
I'll kind of take that one, I guess. As we work to automate the central registry processes, the plan at an agency level is to sort of rinse and repeat and do the same thing for the adult maltreatment. So for now, continue doing adult maltreatment how you have been. We don't have an electronic form for that yet, but it will come shortly after. So we're working, and we've got a new system that's in the works for child maltreatment that will work in conjunction with this form generator. So you'll kind of go generate your form, get the email, and then hit another URL where you'll be able to kind of upload the check, kind of like you do with CBC, but it'll be a different URL in a different system. But you'll be able to do that and pay online and get that registry check moving without having to go to the post office. And that was the thought behind most of these processes was, and of course COVID helped point that out, but we kept seeing, turnaround times for some of these background checks could be weeks for you all. And so, the good thing about the new process is, well, it's a little different, and there's a little expense with the subscriber account, which again, we're going to fix in phase 2. You can now, if you follow the process and you kind of do, work through it, you should be able to get your background checks in, inside a few days. Now, I will say this, 2 things. One, I know Ashlyn and her staff are trying to keep up. They've had a large volume come in. And then we've also heard about State Police has the group that manages their APHIS system. They've recently gone from 12. They've had some retirements and some other people I think they're trying to hire, but they've gone from I can't remember. Justin, you remember? It was like
16 to 6.
16 to 6. So the people processing these background checks over at State Police, which again is not DHS, these are State Police employees, but they've taken a pretty large hit. So they're currently running a couple of weeks out, we understand, but they are working aggressively to close that gap.
And that is just for those that they have to do research on. So if it goes through and it when you initiate your background check, it goes through an immediate state check, and sorry, my phone's vibrating. And it will tell you if it has to go to research, which means they didn't immediately find an exact match for who you put in. And if it has to go to research, that's when we could see a delay.
Yeah, so if it hits though, Justin, I think you'll get those provider accounts will sometimes see those in the same hour.
Yeah,
right?
in a matter of minutes most of the time. Yep.
So that comes, so you submit it and boom, your state check comes back, you'll get your transaction. Well, you get your transaction number when you submit it. But then if you do your federal, I mean, we're seeing those can get turned around in 2 to 3 days. So yes. 72 hours, something like that. So
can I add one thing?
sure.
I'm sorry.
No.
On here, when you are doing the search, when you're putting the information in the INA system, it says if you are requesting an FBI check, you must upload a consent form. On that, I need the consent form uploaded whether you're running just a criminal. Because of the fact is, I have to see the paperwork for me to approve the actual
The check itself.
the check itself. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think what Cindy's saying is that we have the authorization to run these checks, but you have to give that to us. And completing that form and signing that form in front of the notary is what allows us, you are giving us permission on your behalf to run. Again, the CJIS requirements, or not requirements, but the regulatory information around CJIS gives you certain rights. Again, it gives you challenge rights, but you have to authorize that. So that's really the purpose of the form. As you were saying, I want to go work for a child care provider. I understand state law says that I must have a background check to work for, or a therapeutic foster home, or whatever facility you're going to work at, and that you are giving DHS to run a background check through state police and through the FBI. These are criminal background checks. So to make sure that, you have not been up to no good.
Yeah, Kevin, a lot of these, the placement in residential, a lot of them only have to run the criminals. They don't have to run both. So that's why this verbiage says if you're running an FBI check, that means it's not just for an FBI check that I need paperwork uploaded. It is also for the criminal. And this is on the actual INA system.
Can I intervene for a second? Just I want to clarify. So if they're taking DCFS placement, they do need to run both on all their employees. And I see most of these providers are taking DCFS placement. So they need to run both state and FBI on all their employees. I just wanted to clarify that.
Hey, Pam, do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
I do. I just wanted to go back to Cindy had said something about the notary had to be from Arkansas. We have to keep in mind that we do have providers that are on state lines, and some employees that actually live across state lines. So that might be something that we need to address with our legal counsel or the Secretary of State's office, notary division, because if they appear before the notary, it can be an Oklahoma, Louisiana, or Texas notary if they appear before that notary. So that may be something that we need to address with the legal counsel. Just throwing that out there, and not just arbitrarily saying no, an Oklahoma notary or a Louisiana notary or Texas notary cannot notarize something for someone that actually may live in Tennessee or in Texas.
Can I jump in?
Yes.
Can I jump in? I actually pulled the law while we were talking.
Okay, good.
It can be an out-of-state notary. So
okay, I'm glad you did that, Misha.
Yes, you can use a notary from out of state to notarize the form and submit to
Okay, okay. Thank you, Misha, for pulling that.
You're welcome.
Thank you. It says here from Ms. D, we normally do not require fingerprinting. Is it a requirement that all applications be fingerprinted?
Okay, that goes back again. There are some of you guys that are on the call that you will have employees where you have to do the FBI fingerprinting. The rules themselves haven't changed any. So whatever you were previously doing is what you need to do now. It's just the system, the way that we're processing has changed. And so when we're talking about consent forms for criminal or state criminal and FBI, to Cindy's point, what she's saying is we still need that consent form. They're combined now. Whereas in the past, we had two separate forms and you guys would just send in the Arkansas criminal one because that's all you needed on that particular employee. The form itself is combined, but if you don't need the employee or the applicant that you have does not need to go and do the FBI because they've lived in the state, then you don't have to do that now. So the rules are the same, just the process is a little bit different. Misha, do you have anything to add to that one?
Well, because I know most of you guys and almost all of you are DCFS providers, I want to be really clear here. Licensing does not require FBI necessarily on all, but for you to take a DCFS placement, you need to be doing, and you guys have been now since last September, FBI and state background checks on all the employees. So continue like you have been doing since last September, because you are required, if you take a DCFS placement, to have that FBI background check.
Yeah, so
on all employees, not just the ones who have direct contact with the kids, including your janitor, anybody who is on your campus has to have both state and federal. So you need to submit both. And Ashlyn, I saw a question in the chat about child maltreatment forms, and that's been an issue here lately. So I thought I'd go ahead and take that since I'm talking. We need you guys to submit the child maltreatment form to the DCFS unit, Dennis Robbins, directly. Do not continue to submit that to Ashlyn and DCC ECE. We are trying to actually cut out steps in the process so it's faster. So we're trying to cut out the middleman of DCC ECE. So just use our online form so that we can read it and process it more quickly, and send the child maltreatment registry form to the mail address, or you can hand deliver it, and hopefully in the next month or so we're going to give you a way to submit it electronically. We are trying to speed up this process for everyone. Okay,
I also see something. Okay, thank you, Misha, for that clarification and help. I also see a question about the status, provisional status, and is that safe to hire the applicant? You guys are not okay to hire the applicant with provisional. Under your requirements, you have to have all of your criminal and maltreatment checks back together. So right now, the way it is, the INA system is feeding information about criminal and FBI, and then the team here has to get the maltreatment information back from Central Registry, and then once they get that and that one is cleared, then the DCC ECE Norris team will go in and they will then do an overall approved status. So what you guys are looking for is you will get an email, and Kevin, if I'm wrong about this, tell me, but you will get an email. The email will not give you the answer. It will not say that you're cleared or Ashland Avenue is approved. It will just say to you, hey, you've got a status update in the INA system. You need to sign on to INA to your account, and then you'll be able to see the information whether or not Ashland Avenue is approved. So you're looking for the word approved. Provisional means that we've gotten some of the information back.
There were a lot of concerns that several federal requests outstanding as far back as February. Is there any update on those?
So I would say about that to please go ahead and email Nora and Cindy. There's several reasons I can think of for that, and I'm just not sure which one it might be because each one of you guys, of course, are individual. Some of the reasons that we would have a holdup are the fingerprints themselves were rejected by the state police, meaning they couldn't read them. And so it might be in the process of we're trying to get some prints that can be read. Some of it might be that there is a little lag time at the Arkansas State Police, like you heard the others say. And it could be on our end too. I'm just not sure. So if you've got some that are, I would say anytime September 1st older, maybe mid-August older, then please reach out to Nora and Cindy and let's check on the status of those and see if we can't get it going.
Hey, Ashlyn, I see a question that pertains to something I said related to visitors and volunteers on campus. I'll take that one. So if volunteers do not have direct contact or unsupervised contact, they do not have to have background checks. And then visitors do not have to have background checks. So like if you have a house parent who just has, their friends over, or I don't know, people in the community come to visit, that does not require a background check.
Now,
Okay, I also see a question about the code itself, Fatima. So I think what you're talking about there, the background checks that we're talking about would be run under the child welfare code. So if there's something that I'm missing in your question, just check with me after the call and we can talk through if I'm missing a part of your question there.
Okay, I need to clarify. So volunteers get state only check, but still visitors do not have to have background checks.
Okay, Ebony, did we have more that I missed?
And you know what, while you're doing that, Ashlyn, I might jump in. So you guys may hear, to try to help clarify, and Misha, really appreciate you. There is, when you go to this CVC system, you can request two types of checks. So you can request a state-only check, which is just a check of the Arkansas-based criminal background check system, or you can request state and federal. State and federal requires the fingerprint. So if you have to do state and federal, then notice that's what drives the fingerprint. So you guys may have understood that, but just for those of you that may be new to this, if you hear I'm talking about two different types of checks. So, and then registry, the central registry is yet a third check. So just, I hope that clarifies some.
Thank you for that, Kevin. And I also see a question, I think maybe we've answered it, but just in case not, in order for the whole process to be completed, the maltreatment part is included in that. So before you get the overall approved status in your INA subscription, before that, or your account, before that comes back to you, the team here would have looked at that maltreatment piece. So just like Kevin was saying, it's dependent upon the applicant or the employee that you're seeking the request, but for sure there'll be an Arkansas state criminal that needs to come back from the state police, and also a maltreatment that needs to come in from the central registry before it's complete, and or the FBI if you've got somebody that you're either required to do the FBI on, or they have lived out of the state. So all three of those or two of those, depending on the type of request, have to be in and cleared before you will get a completed process and an approved.
States, when does the digital process become mandatory? That would have been October 1st date, is that correct?
That's
so
correct.
October 1st is when everyone should be using this new system. Does this apply to renewals? All three must be submitted again?
So yes, you would depend. I'm always hesitant to say, if you were under a situation where the FBI was not required, so whatever you've been doing in the past since September, whatever you've been submitting and whatever you've been required to do under your license type or under the service that you're providing, whatever you were required to do, you still do that today. And it would be also the same process for any employee that you're renewing, meaning it's time to, the time has gone by and now it's time to run those checks again, then yes, the renewal would be the same process as what we're talking about right now.
Can I jump in on the central registry? I see several questions on central registry, so I just want to make sure that we're clear about that process. Because again, Ashlyn said this a couple of times, the requirements of what checks have to be done is still the same. So out-of-state central registry requirements are still required if the person has lived outside of the state for 5 years. And in order to take a placement from DCFS, you have to have the state, the FBI, the central registry, Arkansas Central Registry. And if the employee has lived out of the state in the last 5 years, central registry checks from those states. The employee cannot start until all of those are back. So I see a couple questions related to that. If I'm not clear, put it in the chat box and I will clarify again.
And this is Kevin. I wanted to jump in. I've seen a couple of questions about emails on the forms. So if you are not getting the forms, one, you can let Nora or Ashlyn or their team know, and they can reach out to us, and we can go and look for that. And unfortunately, it is email. Check your spam folders, check, make sure you didn't typo the email address. In every scenario, we're running checks regularly to make sure the system is delivering. I will tell you that it does have sensitive information. So if your email system doesn't support encryption, you'll hear terms like TLS encryption, but our system, DHS's system, when it reaches out to deliver an email, if your system doesn't accept an encrypted type email, which, by the way, most public, so if you're using Gmail or Yahoo or whatever, most of those systems are already configured to do that. But if you happen to be running on some old version of an email server that is not supporting encrypted emails, you could be getting a link that says, hey, we tried to deliver this email to you, but your system is not accepting TLS, blah, blah, blah. So you must click here, and what will happen is it'll create what's called a secure envelope that allow you to click that link and then come back to our system, log into a portal, which you'll have to create yet another account and all that. But we deal with so much HIPAA and other, PHI and PI information. We're bound by our regulatory agencies to only deliver this sensitive email. And some of these forms have social security number, which is considered PHI, or PII. So we can't deliver those to non-encrypted email. So if you're not getting it, check to make sure you've got the email. Check your spam. In the worst case scenario, if you still can't find it, reach out and we will go and see if we can find the form submission and see if we can help you track it down.
I see a question specific to me. So I just want to be really clear because I know this is confusing. If you take a placement from Children and Family Services, a child in foster care, you can not have your employee start until state, FBI, central registry, and out-of-state central registry if that's required. If you do not take a placement, which I know a couple of you on here do only take private placements, do not take placements from DCFS, then you just follow the licensing standard, minimum licensing standards. And I'll put back to Ashlyn or Ebony if they want to go through those. So if you do not take a DCFS placement and you're just taking private placement, you follow minimum licensing standards. If you take a placement from me, you follow minimum licensing standards, plus you have to have FBI and central registry all completed before the employee can start at your residential facility, or if you're a private license agency or TFC provider, those foster homes.
You got it. If you're a residential facility and you don't interact or do business with DCFS and you have questions about it, reach out to your licensing specialist and they'll be able to show you what the reg says and what's required for you if it's still a little fuzzy for you.
Hey, there's a great question about checks expiring. So most of you guys that are residential providers who take placements from DCFS, because we went to all FBI checks last September, for the most part, your employee should kind of be on a cycle of every, 2 years. And yes, you are entering them in PI, which is a DCFS system. We will work on the reminder issue over the next year or so as we're making CRIS enhancements. But the hope is that you get your employee so that at the same time you have to do state, FBI, and central registry all at the same time, so all your employees don't have different renewal time. Oh, and one other thing, I saw the question about somebody staying overnight. While not a requirement, it is a good idea to make sure, especially as you are responsible for that home. I assume we're talking about a private foster home or private license agency. So I would encourage you to do background checks if you have people staying as guests with your house parent. State only, FBI is not required unless you feel like, hey, they've lived out of state recently. I'm sure you guys all know that sometimes you do a state and then you get an FBI and you get a hit back on the FBI, which we saw several of last year when we started doing FBI checks on some of your employees. So if you vet, hopefully you're doing some kind of vetting. If you think that FBI might be necessary, you could always do that as well.
Okay. There's a question. Also, is the subscriber fee of $150 taking the place of all background check fees?
Yeah, I'll answer that. Unfortunately, no. So you can sort of think of that is a, by the way, that's a source of internet fees for INA. It's not a source of revenue for the department. It was a way to allow us to get the system up. We are working to give you an option to not have that subscriber account. But to be clear, if you don't have that account, every time you go to run a check, you're going to have to put in a credit card for whatever your portion. And we have different payment schedules across different ORIs and those kinds of things. But, you know, the convenience there is that I don't have to type in my credit card number. So if I need to run 10 or 20 checks this week or this month, you know, all I have to do is log in, and what happens is you will get a bill from INA for those background checks. If you don't have that subscriber account, you're going to pay at point of service every time, much like you were ordering something off Amazon, right? So that's the benefit. But in phase 2 of this system, which we're hoping to get out sometime soon, we will you'll have the option to be able to do that. But it does not replace the $22 name-based check or the $11 check for volunteers or the $14 and $25 FBI check, etc. Those fees are still, and so the INA, the subscriber account fee is really for the convenience to access the web-based system. The other fees are sources of revenue for state police and then onto the FBI.
Okay, yes, this provider call is being recorded, and we can send that out to everyone or at your request.
So one additional follow-up. Yes, central registry maltreatment checks are required every 2 years, but not FBI. FBI is a one-time only. So if you do it at the beginning, then you're done. Ms. Pruitt, will you tell me what provider you're from? You asked a question about employees and FBI checks. We work closely with all of our providers at DCFS. So those should all, that catch up should have happened last September. So do you mind putting in the chat what provider you're with so I can get a better idea on how to answer your question?
Ebony, while we're waiting on Ms. Pruitt to enter that information, were there any other questions that we missed? I think we're all caught up.
Yeah, I believe we addressed them all. And if we skipped over something, please feel free to unmute your button and go ahead and ask the question, because now we have the perfect people on the line to kind of assist you with whatever issues that you're running into. So now's the perfect time to ask any questions.
Okay, so I can answer Ms. Pruitt. Ms. Pruitt, you brought up a great point that I forgot about. So Delta is a PRTF, and so PRTFs, I am not referring to DCFS placements related to PRTFs, psychiatric residential facilities. So we did not work with the PRTFs on FBI background checks for all employees because we do not use federal money to pay if we have to pay for PRTFs. It's paid out of Medicaid or state general revenue. So you are doing the same thing that you have done related to your licensing requirements if you are a PRTF, psychiatric residential facility, treatment facility.
The question that I have, I've received like the child maltreatment form back where it's already signed, but then when I try to get everything approved for one of my, someone, volunteer or someone, then Miss Cynthia didn't get hers before mine or something like that. So that's what I was trying to ask the question earlier. Can I just send her like, hey, can I just show you the copy that I have, and then that way we can go ahead and get it approved, or is that just pushing her further back if I did that?
Well, we are aware of that issue, and Ashlyn and I and Cynthia and Dennis have worked through that process. So hopefully that will not continue to happen, that the provider gets the central registry check back before DCCEC has. But I don't want to go too much into that process because over the next month, we are working hard at DCFS to transform our central registry process to hopefully streamline it and make it easier for you all. So I'm sure we'll have a provider call like this to walk it through. But hopefully moving forward, we've identified the issues, and DCCECE or child care will get the result probably faster at the same time as the provider related to the central registry check, so that won't happen again. But if it does continue to happen, please let Ashlyn and myself know, and Cynthia, and we'll regroup and figure out why that continues to happen.
I have a question about, we did the state background check on a volunteer recently. If we decide to hire that volunteer on as an employee, do we have to do another state background check, or can we just do the FBI check?
FBI checks can be added on there. It says an FBI can be added later. As long as the correct forms are uploaded in that system, you should be able to add an FBI on there. Am I correct on this, Kevin?
That sounds right to me, because it would be all the same code that are all the prohibited offenses that we're searching for regardless. So that seems logical to me, that you would just be able to add the additional FBI. Anybody disagree with that?
Ashlyn, I agree with the analysis, but you're just gonna have to make sure that you adjudicate it differently on the back end. Like, as far as knowing that that's not an employee, not a volunteer, and that, to go in and adjudicate it as an employee, not a volunteer.
Well, actually, let us have an all-applying conversation about that, because then now my brain is thinking, okay, well, the system allow that somehow.
Yeah, I was about to say something to that. The system currently does not allow you to go in and just, if you choose state only, it's going to run as state only, and that's the only adjudication buttons that are going to show up. So if you choose state and FBI on the beginning, both buttons will be there, and you will be able to go back and run the FBI at a later date. But if you choose state only, state is required as a part of the FBI check. So if you don't choose FBI in the beginning, another check will have to be run, at least at this time.
Gotcha. Thank you, Justin, for that clarification. So you would need to rerun the check as an employee, not volunteer.
Okay, thank you.
So I need to go back to Ms. Pruitt and PRTS. So Ashlyn or Ebony, y'all are gonna have to help me on this, because what I'm saying to Ms. Pruitt is, it is the same licensing requirements that you have always had for a PRTS. So what I was talking about related to DCFS and taking a DCFS placement applies to QRTPs, family life setting residential, private license placement agency, TFC. What I was saying related to DCFS and running FBI background checks on all employees does not apply to PRTS. For PRTS, it is the same minimum licensing standards that you always have, and I do not have that memorized off the top of my head as to what your employees have for PRTS, but it is the same as it has always been according to the minimum licensing standards.
Right, so you would need, I'm sorry, Ebony, go ahead.
I was just going to say nothing has changed with that process, the licensing requirements. So you will refer to the minimum licensing standards with that, or we can kind of walk you through with your licensing specialist if you're having some type of confusion on that.
Right, so it would be the Arkansas State Criminal Check and the Central Registry Check, and it would be dependent upon if the person, the applicant or the employee had lived in the state or not. So that was good advice that Ebony gave you. If you have questions about that, then just call your licensing specialist. They'll be able to walk you through, but it's in your book as well. That's what we're following. Okay.
Can I ask another question? When we do the FBI check, the state and FBI check for someone here for as our business, but then like if they're from Louisiana, we have to do one, or the FBI will catch all states? Or will we have to do one for Louisiana, and then how we normally run ours? Will we have to do it for Louisiana too? Or will FBI catch Louisiana?
What provider? Oh, sorry, Ashlyn.
Okay, go ahead.
Water Springs Ranch 220.
Sorry, Ashlyn, go ahead.
So residential. Okay, so Fatima and Ebony, check me on this. It is my understanding that in this, using that as an example, they would do the state criminal for Arkansas and the FBI because that person lives in Louisiana. There's not an additional Louisiana criminal check, or am I wrong?
That is correct. From my understanding, the FBI picks up all states.
Well,
But
let's
April,
see.
you would, excuse me, April, you would be required to do a Louisiana or whatever state they're from, a child maltreatment though.
Okay, okay.
Yes. And just so you guys know, what we've learned is that not all states report up to the FBI. Like not.
Well, let me clarify here. All states do report to the FBI, but not all law agencies within that state report up. So you may have a local small city where someone's been criminally convicted and sitting in the city jail that would not get reported up to the FBI. So I can't speak as to whether that state's check has to be run through, but there may be a situation where that may be necessary.
Yeah, just wanted you guys to know that information, because that by the minimum licensing requirements, you are responsible for Arkansas criminal and Arkansas Central Registry, and in your example, April, FBI, and then Louisiana Central Registry. So if any of you on the call are just a little unclear about that, again, ask your licensing specialist about all of them. Because if you are an entity that works amongst DCFS, we can even help you there. And if we don't know the answers, and we can reach out to Misha and her team and get clarity. So always use your licensing specialist as a point of contact always. And we can hunt down answers for you if we don't readily know them.
I have a question because I'm kind of confused right now. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Before we're hiring employees, we were told to do only the FBI check on employees that lived outside of the state of Arkansas. Then last year, we were told that we had to do FBI checks on all of our potential employees. Now it's sounding like y'all are saying that we're going back to the old way and just doing FBI checks on the employees that lived outside of the state of Arkansas within the last 5 years. Which one are we supposed to be doing now?
Can I take it?
Sure.
Ms. Bell, what provider are you?
Dana's House. We're emergency shelter
Okay.
facility.
So you take placements from DCFS. So
Yes, we do.
Nothing has changed. So you are still doing the process that we started in September of 2019. You need to do an Arkansas state check on every employee. You need to do an FBI background check on every single employee, whether they have direct care or not. You need to do an Arkansas Central Registry check. And if the employee has lived out of the state in the last 5 years, you need to do a Central Registry check on any state in which the person has lived. So what you have been doing since September of 2019, you are continuing to do, but now you're doing it through the INA subscription or through the portal, whatever term we're using. So we're doing it electronically. Same requirements.
That makes sense. So when the time comes for renewal, I just do state, I don't have to do another FBI check, correct?
That's correct. That's what I said. So FBI only one time on the employee, Central Registry every 2 years.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Misha, do you guys have any requirement to redo the FBI every 5 years or anything like that?
No, not for a residential. And Ms. Bell and all other emergency shelters, QRTPs, residential, please do us a favor and key those in PI too. We're not talking about that today, but we really need you to key it into PI so that we keep track of it. And then we can help you remember when you need to do it again as well.
Hey, Ebony, it looks like the majority of everybody on the call wanted a copy of the recording, so let's just get that back out to everybody to be safe.
Sure.
I think that we've moved through all of the questions, you guys, and we've run just a little bit past our time. I think the name of the game here is, if you have any questions at all, go ahead and call your licensing specialist. You can email or call Cindy and Nora. They will be the first ones. Especially get a hold of Nora if it's been a while since you've had any results back, and let her help you sort that through. You can always email me. I can get you to the right spot and or answer your questions. So I appreciate, again, your time today and your attention and your patience with it. But we will get there. I guarantee you we'll get there, you guys. It's just going to take us a little bit of time working together. All right, Ebony, any last words from you?
I'd like to thank Kevin, Justin, and Misha for answering all of those questions. I really do appreciate it. And just to piggyback off of Ashley, you can give me a call or email. I'll be happy to assist you in any way that I can. So if we do not have anything else, have a great day. I appreciate your time.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, guys.
Thanks, everyone.